Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. A warm welcome to this channel to anyone who's new. This channel is devoted to the teachings of a spiritual teacher who I just have utmost respect for, named Bruno Groening. And to my regular viewers, hello. I miss this channel. I miss doing these videos. And as I've shared, I've been in I've been in deep introspection about Bruno Groening, about his teachings, how to share his teachings, what to do now that Bruno Groening is no longer in a body with us. And a big part of that reflection has been the recognition that, recognition of humility. You know, Bruno Groening would use the phrase master of life, and he said he wants all of us to become masters of life. And the humility is, for me, is the recognition that I'm not a master of life yet. I don't know how close or how far I am. I hope I'm close, but I'm not expecting it to happen tomorrow, though that would be nice. And the reason why I'm sharing all this is because, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So as many of you know, I had very profound healing early on in this path. The first 8 months, it was like every couple of weeks, another healing. My body was in such bad shape. This teaching saved my life. And then after that, I devoted myself to an intellectual understanding of Bruno Groening's teachings because I felt like something was missing. So I really dived deep into understanding what Bruno taught. And then I dived deep into this idea of surrendering to God and following God. And, at that point, as we say in English, I got a little chip on my shoulder, which is a fancy way of saying I got a little arrogant. I was like, oh, I got this. I understand. I understand what Bruno Groening was really teaching. And, but I knew I didn't. That was just pride. And then I read a couple sentences of Bruno's teachings that just popped my bubble. And since then, I've been in very deep introspection. I've shared these sentences before, and I will share them again and again and again because I believe they're very important. Excuse me, one moment. And I'm going to have to paraphrase. I don't have my book handy. But one of the sentences is, I ask you now to not determine the timing of a healing, but to endure everything that comes. The second sentence was, one who is attached to worldly things cannot follow God. And the third sentence, which I'd been aware of for a while, but hadn't fully taken to heart, and again, I'm paraphrasing, Bruno said, if a healing doesn't occur, it is because the person does not have the spiritual ripeness or because there is a lesson that needs to be learned. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but I believe I have the essence of those three things. So the first one, I ask you for yourself not to determine the timing of a healing, but to endure everything that occurs. When I read that, I realized I'd been trying to force healing. I had been trying to determine the timing, and I was starting to get resentful, not maybe resentful, but lose faith some and be confused, like, why isn't the healing happening? Like it's supposed to have happened by now. In essence, I thought I knew something which I didn't know, and that was when a healing is supposed to happen. In fact, Bruno said only God has the necessary purview, which means overview, to know the right time for a healing. Well, I'm not God, but It's funny, arrogant thinking kind of has the attitude of like, well, I know everything. Well, I didn't. I don't know. I don't know what the best timing of a healing is for myself or someone else. And so combine that with the third sentence I shared, and I'll say it again. If a healing does not occur, it is because the person has not attained the spiritual maturity, or there's a lesson that needs to be learned. When you put those two together, I started to understand, and I'm just still understanding, the healing's a lot more, the phenomenon of healing in general is a lot more complicated than give the illness away, tune into Einstein, take in the good removes the bad, and then you get healed. Certainly that's part of it. And certainly some healings happen that way. I've had many a healing that's happened that way. But what that third quote brings to mind is that there's learning that needs to happen, and there's change that needs to happen. If, Bruno Groening himself said, with one word, I could heal every person in this town. But wouldn't that be a bad thing? Because then they would go about doing more bad, meaning that the illness is there for a reason, and the illness is not going to be healed until someone has changed on the inside. Otherwise, let me say it another way. Illness and burdens and whatnot, they don't happen for no reason. They happen because in some way, shape, or form, we said yes to evil. If we don't learn what we did that was wrong, we're just going to repeat it. So yes, sometimes a healing is just giving it away and it's gone. Sometimes a healing is giving it away, taking in good energy, and the good energy, the divine energy, displaces it. But there's a lot more to it. I would say in most cases, we have to change. Because Bruno said, human beings reap what they sow. They bring misfortune onto themselves. If I have an illness, my understanding from what Bruno taught is because some way, shape, or form, I've done something wrong. If I don't learn that lesson, why would it make sense for God to heal me? Because I'll just do it again. And so that second quote, you cannot, someone who is attached to worldly things cannot follow God. That was a very hard one for me to read. I mean, I'm glad I found it. But for years, I'd been talking about how important it was to follow God and how my own strivings to do that. But when I read that, I realized why it had why it was such a struggle for me to follow God. Because I was still attached to worldly things. And so when I read that, what I knew was that I knew the teachings of Bruno Groening, but I didn't understand how it all fits together in the big picture. Bruno Groening said healing's only 10% of his work. Most of what Bruno Groening taught was about spiritual growth. I came to Bruno Groening looking for healing, as many people do. But that's not his main emphasis. That was a hard one for me to swallow. Because I just wanted to be, initially, I didn't care about the other stuff. I just wanted my health back. But then once I got my health back, then I was like, oh, well, I just want to, feel good all the time. I didn't realize that that I needed to change inwardly, that everything about me needed to change. And what's the fundamental thing I needed to change? My attachment to worldly things. The spiritual path doesn't require that we any one of us becomes a monk or a nun, and I've considered becoming a monk. I've shared about that. And pretty much every traditional spiritual path requires people to cultivate detachment from worldly things. And there's a reason. And Bruno gives part of it right now. Like if I'm attached to a particular thing, let's say surfing the internet, then I'm less attached to God. Maybe to make it a little more simple, if I'm attached to spending hours on the internet, that's less time, energy, attention, and care I have for my family. Less focus, less devotion. Howdy, Jeanette. I lived in Texas, so I'm allowed to say howdy. I lived there for 10 years. Welcome. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for saying hi. So it's not an easy thing to cultivate detachment from worldly things. And it's a process, like the spiritual path. So when I put those three sentences together, I knew that I didn't know much, had a lot of information, but my understanding of what Bruno was really teaching. And in fact, Bruno Groening himself said, to free the soul from the, I'm paraphrasing, but this is almost an exact quote, to free the soul from the clutch, to free the divine soul from the clutches of evil. That's what this is really all about. And by this, I understand Bruno Groening meant his work and his teachings. So ultimately, Bruno Groening taught what every other great spiritual teacher taught: spiritual liberation. We're just very blessed. He also taught the path of how to heal the body. Most teachers don't teach that. So I got introduced to Bruno's teachings about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years and a couple months. So you're getting the, like I've been talking for 12 minutes. I'm sharing 10 years worth of very deep seeking. And this is not to shame anyone or judge anyone, wherever you are, whatever you're coming to Bruno Groening for, wherever you are on that path is like perfect. That's part of what trust is trusting that God has it handled. And I simultaneously feel a need to honor people where they are. But I also feel the need to share my now deeper understanding. I'm going to say more holistic understanding of what Bruno Groening taught. If healing is 10% of what, if healing's 10% of what Bruno Groening taught, then, see, my arms right now are extended all the way like this. Then healing is only that much, right? If even, it's more like that much. And the rest of the path, there we go, is that much. And what is the rest of the path? Spiritual growth. Some of that Bruno Groening shared. Faith, taking care of your body, living in harmony with nature, monitoring your thoughts, thinking good thoughts, speaking good words, doing good deeds, taking in the divine energy, learning to be conscious of the divine all day long, seeing the divine in others. So my view is that Bruno Groening gave us sort of the fundamentals, but the specifics are going to be different. Each of us has our own lessons to learn and our own tasks. Bruno himself said that each soul before coming to this earth makes a commitment to do certain things, and it's not going to be the same for each one of us. So I just wanted to share an update. I think about this channel very often, and I want to I almost want to do a video every day like I used to, but it just doesn't feel right because I'm just percolating and digesting and so I'm gonna leave comments open on this video. Feel free to leave comments, and just gonna close with a minute or two of tuning in. Thank you, beautiful souls, for joining in. Take care. Big love, and may the force be with you, the divine healing force.